Hi, Ricardo. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming and talking to everyone at the event today about the history of your involvement with the immersive web, what we now call the immersive web, and the future. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Great. I think one of the things that I think it's safe to say is that the community around ThreeJS is one of the biggest, sort of graphics engine communities on the web these days. Mm-hmm. When you started the project, did you have any idea that there would be this many people who were involved and that you would see this kind of growth in interest and in contributions?
I didn't. Somehow my main thinking was like I wanted to solve the problem. I wanted to have a tool. The tool, it was mainly actually the tool is something I wanted to have more for myself, and I wanted to solve that problem. And somehow like more and more people kept like contributing, but I was not thinking like, oh, what was going to happen, like in this time, like a lot of people rely on it, and that's something I'm still like getting used to it, to like the responsibility of like making a change that can break things, but it's been pretty challenging, and it actually has been like something that is one of those things like there's no like it's kind of probably a good thing that I didn't go to university, because also there's no like university, like there's no school where they teach you how to run communities, how to run like open source. You just find yourself doing it, and if you have patience, and you're lucky to have patience, and you can do it, then you just do it. But yeah, it's been a pretty like everyday discovery. Like, oh, now there's these people fighting. I had to learn how to like how to de-escalate conflict, and like try to like encourage people to like contribute or like make things easier, and like really considering also that I'm now like my background is not really software development. I'm making it very trying to make it very easy for people to contribute, which sometimes what means that there's a lot of contributions. But I think it got into the point that it's not that easy to contribute, because the things that need to be done now are much harder. So right now I think it's getting to a point that is fairly stable, not that crazy. For the last 5 years or so, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, one of the things that I was wondering was the sort of shift that you've seen in the types of problems that you have to solve to enable the rich interactivity of the ThreeJS engine. So when you started in the early 2010s, I think you said, what's sort of the difference between the things that you had to solve back then and the types of problems that you see the community facing today?
Well, things have been changing, especially since WebVR and WebXR. Things have changed quite a bit in like interactivity-wise. Like there's also WebGL and WebGPU coming that basically makes things faster. But at the end of the day, it's just a different way to talk into the GPU. Is not, just refactoring code doesn't require much. It's hard. Like you have to like figure out how to like do it the right way. But it's not gonna. Like ideally, like users are not going to even notice that work was done. It's just something that should be transparent and should be like, oh, now runs faster. But at the beginning, it was mainly, controllers have, I guess, from the 2010s, for the 2000s, like we, since most of the time on the web we only use keyboards and mouse, but now with WebVR we also have controllers, and those controllers like basically make websites that allow you to control it differently. Well, I guess we also have like joysticks, but we, joysticks and gamepads, but we rarely, you don't use gamepads and joysticks for controlling a website or like interaction. Usually it's for a game. Right. But since WebVR, like with, the first controllers, and also like the mix of like controllers of the first ones being like 6 degrees of freedom, then like 3 degrees of freedom for like mobile ones that you had to like for all this process, all these years that we've been like, how do you make an abstraction of something like a 3 degree of freedom controller that also works the same way, like a 6 degree of freedom, and the UI, how do you make all these work for all these controllers? And I guess we are at the point that I think we can just ignore all these mobile 3 degree of freedom controllers that were, it was something that's kind of like for getting up to speed, like since the Quest now, it's all wireless, we can have 3 degree of freedom controllers. So now the challenge, and now, like, I guess since last year, especially like since last month, now we can use hands directly
Right.
to interact with these worlds. So the new challenge is basically figuring out, like, at the beginning was like, fine, you can click on objects and you can just use your mouse and click on top of them. But now, especially with hands, you basically want to grab them and like touch them, and you want to be more physical. Even if you don't have a feedback, you want to be able to that's kind of, that's the way that I think the future is going to be, like, especially now with VR, but like with AR is going to be the same thing. You're going to have things floating and you're going to interact with them with your hands.
Right.
Like I've been usually, like, for the last month, I've been basically using the Quest without controllers at all. It's only been using hands and getting used to that.
Yeah, it's a big shift, right?
Yeah. So that's I think that's the problem or the interaction to solve, and somehow like make it like, if it's clickable with your hands, also you need to work also with controllers and some, probably not with the mouse and mouse and keyboard, but that's that's a new abstraction that needs to be done, and needs to make, and I'm trying to make it easy for people that want to like create a like interface like that. But yeah, it's a bit more difficult than not just clicking on things.
Right. Yeah, when I first started thinking about wider web design, I just ran a sort of a thought process to see, the difference between designing a flat website with just a few actions and then basically the same type of experience, but with supporting all of the different input types like voice and touch and tracked controllers and hand input. And, it's an exponential amount of complexity for that sort of design.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear that what started off with 3 being mainly centered around WebGL and display, it sounds like it's sort of expanding out to more of the sort of interaction mode. And obviously, there's the shift to going into VR mode and AR mode using different kinds of displays. But it sounds like there's also big chunks that are sort of either landing beside or in ThreeJS. Other than that complexity of input, are there any other chunks that you see coming down the road for ThreeJS?
There's also, in parallel, there's also the since the GLTF file format kind of specifies like, this is a model that's going to have this type of like reflection and this kind of like roughness, and it's something that like websites like for instance Shopify they're using it for like showcasing, like, if someone wants to buy a product, they can see it in 3D and they really want to show the product as more accurate as possible. So with GLTF, that kind of enabled that, like standardize all these this way of displaying all these 3D files. There's also more people that are interested in improving it, so adding more features to the format. So like until now, it's been mainly like reflecting an environment or reflecting or an object that you can have reflective. But now you can make it. The things that we had to add is to make it also like materials that can be transmissive, which means it's just like transparent, but also like it has to be refractive. So you have to like bend what is in the background, like, and all of things like that. That is like, when I started, for me, it was impressive to have shadows.
Yeah.
Like an object actually had shadows on the floor, or like on other things. Like at this point, it's like, wow, yeah, we can actually have like, like an object that is refractive, and I kind of know how the whole process is, but yeah, they keep adding more features into it. That because we also like render, those GLTF, we also have to make sure that everyone, like, we render it properly. So we also, it's things that whatever they decide that they want to add there, we also had to add to the engine too. Yeah, mostly those things, and keeping it optimized and trying to make it performant. But also the beauty of like open source and like is that I don't know like what people are going to contribute tomorrow. Like there are things that I wouldn't even think of. But yeah, like some of the things are Also, something I started like few months ago, which is like creating USDC files, which iOS uses for like the AR mode. So until now, we had to like have a GLTF file and a USDC file for being able to do AR. But like looking at the API that they were providing, I realized that we could actually generate those USDC files like on real time, like at click time. So it's something that worked out, and then these people also like seem to be using it, and they're also helping to make it more robust. So we support all the features. But
one of the things that is the topic of the day is what we need from the rest of the community to sort of step from where we are to take a big step forward towards a more immersive web, a more capable web. Using these technologies. From your position, looking at the ThreeJS community and looking at both your personal projects and what you see a lot of the consumers of ThreeJS doing, what would you ask from the browser teams and the operating system teams and other library developers? Like, what do you see as necessary for us to move forward and sort of take the next step on the immersive web?
I think the browsers that are implementing the APIs are actually doing a very good job of like being ahead of what the libraries are doing. Like for instance, like we are not waiting for Oculus to add things. They keep adding more things, and they keep adding things that I don't have time to study them and understand them. Yeah. So that's, I think the OS and browsers are doing a really good job of like keeping that up. The only thing I can think of is like in general for the community. Like I think I noticed that we spend and I guess this is more of a software engineer kind of issue. Maybe we don't have tools for like designers or creatives, but I think there is a lot of, because right now like we rely on like programming, and someone needs to like program it. We tend to mainly focus on optimizing the experience of development. So there's a lot of like, oh, now we can do this, and with 3 lines of code, and like 2 lines of code, and like we can combine this and that. But there is not. But I wish there were more actually experiences that create, that makes you laugh or like cry or like create emotions, like more experiences that like like to become like viral. I think we need more projects that like you had to go to this website, you had to like get this Oculus and try this thing, and you're gonna have a great time. I think we need more of that, like than not like libraries that make things easier. Because
over the next 2 years, what is your biggest hope for ThreeJS and the immersive web in general?
For 2 years, I think I want to. I think it's mainly hoping that whichever abstractions we end up doing right now for interacting, like doing interaction in immersive environments, pan out to be to work well with whatever new headsets we end up having in 2 years. I think we're in the point that I can see that being like, I don't want to do an abstraction that then like in next year, like, no, actually the controller is going to be different, and that's not useful. But I think I'm fairly confident that hands are going to be the thing, and controllers, but mostly hands, I think. So hopefully in 2 years we are having AR classes, and we're using our hands, and everything is, and the same code that we have been doing since now is just working, and people are used to it, and people will be improving to it without having to like start from scratch again. That's my main hope. It's working fine. It's just there is no bet on the rendering side. Like we just keep adding features, and you can just modify them. But like betting on like, I think that's going to be the interaction. So that's going to be the abstraction that we need. That's I guess I spent like 2 years with WebVR, and then like it changed to WebXR, and then I had to like start again. So I don't want to, have to do another one like that.
The second try is enough tries. Hopefully we'll stick with that one.
Yeah, and we are in a similar situation where sure, like for VR it's fairly easy. We use hands and we use controllers, but for AR, like we're still using like touching on a screen that throws a ray that actually doesn't map with like hands, like it's so, and that's I think it's a temporal thing. So I don't want to invest too much time on that kind of interaction because I think that's something that's not going to last that long. That's just my what I think. So it's difficult to like be in a situation where, like that's helpful for one of the projects that is now, but like we'll see. Hopefully, I think it's going to be more hands. We'll see, but. Yeah, I just don't enjoy doing code that I had to like throw away that often.
Right, and that is for a long time. That has been the value of ThreeJS is that it helps people in some ways surf the radical changes that have taken place on the lower level pieces that allow them to do the experiences and to create the experiences. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, we are back. Hello.
Hi there. Long time to see.
Long time. Yeah. Thank you for coming back on today. So one of the things that we are doing is that we're using a tool called Slido to gather questions from the audience. And so Julie Smithson, I think, will bring up a Slido screen for us that has some questions, or she will somehow relay those to us. And then we'll go through and see what's going on there. Okay. So how important are no-code designer-centered tools for the future of WebXR? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. Have you had an experience? What's your take on that?
I'll say very important, which kind of ties with what I was saying, that we need more. Like one of the things that Flash had was that it was very easy. Like you didn't need to code for it, and that allowed a lot of people to do very silly things. And silly things are funny, so I think we need more of that. So, but it's also very difficult to do no-code design-centered tools. Like you can do something that works, but then they're going to ask features like the set of features that they ask, people are going to ask is endless. So, I think it's better just to start with code and then build tools on top.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages of the web is that every website tool, no-code tool or otherwise, doesn't have to be everything to everybody. Like you have a package like Unity. They are trying to sort of be everything to everybody in a lot of ways, and they do a great job at what they do, but I'm looking forward to having the overhead of creating experiences be so low that we can have very niche tools that do specific things and don't have to sort of be general purpose. And then they all interlock through web standards. I know
combining them is also like kind of tricky. Like it's like I haven't seen a lot of, unless it's something like the React ecosystem where you can do many components and they work together. It's difficult to do something that you do something that someone using Angular can use it, and someone using React can use it, and someone using a visual editor can also combine it. That's a bit challenging.
Certainly, yeah. We have a little bit of interconnect through GLTF, the file standard, but the higher level interactions, things like digital bodies, seem like an open question of how those work across platforms. And I know that
maybe something like GLTF for interaction will be pretty good to have at this point. I don't know who will design that, but some sort of interaction will be, like, I know USDC has interaction, so somehow we need also for GLTF we need some sort of like specify some sort of interaction that we can all talk to or communicate via that.
Mm-hmm. Looks like the next question is if you were going to invest in enterprise XR right now, what platforms and devices would you personally use?
What is Enterprise XR?
I think that is a sort of inherent in the question, isn't it? That we know what that is.
Right. Enterprise XR. I guess probably I will probably say the Quest at this point. It depends on the usage. You need to have something like you need to see the world. Like you can probably use Google Glass that I know they use for Enterprise, or you can use the HoloLens. But if you need to, depends on the use case. I guess Enterprise is a bit too broad, I think.
Right, and even the difference between the Quest headset scenarios that make sense, and then the HoloLens, enterprise options from Microsoft, they're used for radically different things. So it's definitely a sort of a generic question to ask. Those are the two that pop to my mind, but obviously there are many others.
The Quest can be used for visualizing architecture stuff, for instance, in an enterprise scale, I guess. And I guess you can also use for remotely controlling machines.
Yep.
But that's all I can think of too.
Let's see. There's a question about WebXR. Can we actually adopt WebXR if WebKit / Safari is so far behind on their implementation?
That's also like that's also like makes it difficult to understand, because one thing is WebXR, like there's the AR side and there's the VR side. Sure, you want to, for the things that you can do with AR right now in mobile, right now, like on the web, you're kind of limited right now because WebXR doesn't run on Safari iOS. But at the same time, if your use case is to show, like, you're doing like a website where you're selling chairs and you want the user to be able to visualize it, then that actually, well, like for instance with Model Viewer, you can actually do it works for both for Android and iOS, and the experience is the same. But if you need to have like a more custom interaction, then right now it's a little bit limited what we can do with Safari. But for VR, I think with the Quest and the desktop headsets, I think we have, it's more of a matter of like creating experiences and not when like Safari is not limiting the VR use case.
Yeah. The next question is about accessibility. What do you think is sort of the best path forward in terms of adding accessibility, things like alt text and supporting screen readers and keyboard-only accessibility? Within the ThreeJS community, is there an effort to start to support more of that?
Oh, I thought that was in the context of VR or XR. Like, I couldn't picture. I know that with React Fiber, for instance, they are working on that. They're adding like accessibility for it. I think the only way that we can do accessibility, which is just the way that they did it, as far as I know, is basically like creating like fake DOM elements on top of the objects in WebGL. I think that's a little bit. I think that's a little bit out of scope of the ThreeJS on itself. Like ThreeJS is more the renderer. We could maybe like try to do like create a utility on top of it, or one example that shows how you can do that, like put like fake DOM elements, like invisible elements that you can that describe the scene, but it's not something that I will see as like a built-in in ThreeJS itself. Like it's something that will be an example that shows like if you want to do that, then you can do it, but it's mainly because it's very difficult to how do you make like instancing of like 10,000 stars like accessible? Like do you put like you cannot have like 10,000 DOM elements, fake elements, because they're gonna make the whole thing very slow. So it is by case in a case by case situation. But yeah, I think it should be something sitting on top of the 3DS, but not in 3DS itself.
Yeah, I think it's one of the nice things about the web is that there is a culture of accessibility built into the DOM right now. And so as we move into using additional modes, display modes and input types and things like that, it will let us hopefully take some of the lessons we've learned over a couple of decades of accessibility within the flat web and port some of them in, whether that's DOM elements that sit on top of a WebGL scene or just completely different modes for different types of access. The web has lots of paths for that sort of thing. So I'm hopeful on that front anyway.
Yeah, I think Apple maybe was trying to actually design something along the lines of like some sort of like A-frame inside the DOM, where is part of the DOM, but I haven't seen. I wish I had seen more, like, you know, more working groups like trying to design this, because yeah, like it's very difficult to do that as a on the WebGL layer. Like, you know, it's difficult to like try to combine with DOM, and if the browser could do some of that, it could be useful. But then if the browser does that, then the browser is building a 3D engine inside too. So I'm not sure what's the path will be for that.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of accessibility conversations land in the realm of having a some sort of declarative scene language that is then decorated with a lot of accessibility media types, like sort of the equivalent of alt text, and that I think fits kind of a layer above ThreeJS itself. So it might be one of those things where there'll be lots of different experiments on top of ThreeJS to add that sort of accessibility. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, that would be good.
The next question is, do you think there's a risk of ThreeJS becoming obsolete given how fast things are changing each year with these new technologies?
Like I wish it become obsolete at some point, so I don't have to work on it anymore. But the only way for it to become obsolete is by someone doing kind of the same thing but better. So it has to be open source. It has to be open for like people to you know, remix it and do their own versions and like tweak it. And you know, and it had to be free. And it had to like be kind of simple to use. I mean, simple is, you know, is relative. So I think in general the current setup is not that easy for all the people to try to do the same thing, because, you know, usually for these kind of products, like people need to have like an actual, you know, you need to, you know, it will be like Adobe or someone, you need to have a subscription, you have to put your email, and, you know, like, and I try to like get rid of all these things and just use the code, and you can use it and you can mix it and you can improve it, and, you know, so it's difficult to do something like that because they don't have anything in return. Like, you know, they don't have subscription, like, and they don't have that kind of money. But I hope somehow someone finds a business model that can maybe fork it and do it better, and I can retire. Or I can use it myself. Really, it will be good to be able to use it.
Right. Yeah. It seems like one of the goals of a lot of library writers is to write themselves out of a job so that they can become consumers of the library, because they made it for themselves. They needed it.
Yeah, that was the whole point. Now just, I need to find like maybe an hour a week to like, all right, now I'm going to use it and do something with it, but it's difficult to do that.
Okay, it looks like we have Oren. Hello.
Hey.
Good to see you. Thank you so much. And of course, thank you, Mr. Doob. Thank you so much for coming and talking about ThreeJS. We're going to hand it over to Oren, also known as DePanther, to talk about his work with the Unity WebXR exporter. So,
awesome. Cool. All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye there.